During my review of Gundam Unicorn, one thing I did during that review was go in a bit on a couple things that I felt like were weaknesses in the series. The positives are obvious. There's a ton of lovable characters, awesome mobile suit designs, and awesome mobile suit battles. Lots of Unicorn to love, for sure. However, it does have weak antagonists, but one thing I went on pretty hard with, outside of the big problem of nothing meaning things, was Laplace's box. What we're going to talk about today is what Laplace's box is, and why it's a really silly concept the more that you think about the Universal Century and how it's treated within Gundam Unicorn. So what is Laplace's box? Well, it's a MacGuffin from Gundam Unicorn that basically holds the big retcon of Gundam Unicorn that ended up not mattering. That the Federation actively stopped the colonies from gaining independence, blew up the declaration of this, and did so because Unicorn pretty much just tries to turn the Federation into Snidely Whiplash. As far as retcons go, it's not really that well thought out, and the more I think about it, the less it makes sense, and man, it was just mismanaged as an idea. First and foremost, it doesn't make sense for the Vist family to just sit on this, unless we're just supposed to assume they're a bunch of lazy assholes. This type of information at different stages of the Universal Century would have saved tons of lives, but they just sit on it. I mean, think about this. You unveil this when Zeon Zum-Daikun declares that Side 3 is independent, and there's never a 1-year war. You do it after the 1-year war, there's no Operation Stardust. You do this after the Grips War, Haman Karn never invades the Earth. You do this after the first Neo-Zeon War, you never get a second one. By the way, in every single conflict, there are genocides that are committed. So what does this tell me about the Vists when they just sit on their fat asses with this info? It just makes me hate them. And honestly, that makes the reveal that much more frustrating. Not to mention, again, it didn't end up mattering. Side 3 just becomes part of the Federation after Gundam Narrative, because nothing mattered. The other problem that I have with this is I really hate the idea of treating any faction in Gundam like they're a monolith. It's obvious that Zeon isn't a monolith, because after the 1-year war, more often than not, Side 3 just wanted to be left alone as the Republic of Zeon, and Axis Zeon was treated as a separate entity. Obviously, not everyone in the Federation supported the Titans during the Grips War, which is why some supported the Aeug instead, and some would rejoin the Federation after the conflict, like with Amuro Ray or Yu Kajima, both of whom ended up joining Lando Bell. This is what Laplace's box does. It takes the Federation, which is a complicated organization to say the least, and oversimplifies them into a blob of evil with a big evil mustache. Why I went British with that pronunciation, I don't know, but just know that I used the comparison of Snidely Whiplash because it's just cartoonishly evil. Now, obviously the Federation's capable of evil things. Just look at the Grips War. I did an entire series on it. Go watch it. Now. Even so, the mistake the bigwigs made was to trust Jamitov Hyman and just have a set-it-and-forget-it approach as opposed to actually keeping their Spec Ops accountable. My issue comes from when you factor in the timeline of the Universal Century. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but the 1-year war was a completely unprovoked attack on the Federation by Zeon. Before Melvin chimes in and says that the 1-year war was a war for independence, they just expose that they're a shitty Twitter LARPer that doesn't know a fucking thing about Gundam. Zeon had been independent for over 20 years. I mentioned this in my 1-year war video, which you also should go watch, but Zeon had been an independent side of colonies since 0053, and had a defense force not long after they declared independence. Did the Federation go to war with them? No. Side 6, which is a neutral colony that had good relations with Zeon and the Federation all the way up to the 1-year war, was a mediator in negotiations. And the conclusion that they came to was simple. Side 3 could become the Republic of Zeon, as long as they realize that means they're cut off from the Earth's resources. Given that colonies are about as self-sustaining as it gets at this point, this wasn't that big of a deal. So even if the Federation during the Laplace incident had done what it had done, 53 years later, they didn't even fucking care enough to try and keep Zeon under their thumb. They quite literally just let them go. Some colonies wouldn't really do much, others would still house Federation bases, some just remained neutral and did their own thing like Side 6. So with that in mind, it's obvious that the Federation of the first year of the Universal Century is not the same one 53 years in, and it just goes to show you that the Zabi family attack was completely unprovoked. Granted, Garen is Hitler. Of course it was unprovoked. See what I mean when I say the revelation's kind of pointless? The more I think about it, the more I realize that this whole thing wasn't very well thought out. Now, I understand what the writer was going for. This sort of a revelation would show that the wars were pointless, but the problem is that nothing matters when you consider the passage of time, the actions of Zeon, and so on and so forth. The fact that Zeon gives up its independence anyway leads me to just say this. To quote the great philosopher Freddie Mercury, nothing really matters. So how would I fix this, given that I have some writing chops? First, go over to Amazon, read what I've got on offer just so you can see what those chops are. Second, what I would do here is alter how things play out. Quite frankly, I'd have Benager go apeshit on his great-grandpa. I would actually have him have the crash out of the century, where he talks about how nothing matters. The effect that this would have had means nothing. And when it may have mattered, you assholes sat on it while millions of Earthlings and Space Noise died after the 1-year war, and when billions died during it. I'd have to take all the stories that he heard and knows about, and have him tell Siam Vist right to his stupid face about them. Tell him about what happened to Zinnerman's family. Tell him about how Marito was gang raped as a child after being used like a tool by Glemmy Toto. Go down the fucking list and lay it at Vist's feet, because let's be honest, this shit is his fault. I'd have him end the conversation just by saying he's gonna take the unicorn and solve the problems that Vist refused to. Honestly, I feel like if you recontextualize the revelation of the box like that, the whole situation is that much more palatable. You go from a revelation that tries to recontextualize the past to a revelation that gives a main character motivation. At that point, you can start to make the turn that the new generation is going to change this and set things right by embracing their inner god of possibility. You can even end the story in a way that fits better with Hathaway, that Minerva negotiates a more positive unity for the colonies that the Federation just ends up screwing up anyway during Hathaway. Then, they all live about as happy as Universal Century allows, that is to say, not happy at all. That's my thoughts on it, though. Am I off base? Let me know in the comments. Also, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, become a member. Sure Dude and I want to start a lore podcast. We need about 20-ish more members to justify the time that it would take. So, let's do that. Anyway, my name is Big Micah C, your favorite vanilla gorilla. Have yourselves a great rest of your day.